My people know that there was not always jungle. In the beginning was only a plain which went on forever. One day, from out of the sky, came an old man and his sons. They built a hut and planted corn and yucca. But there was no water then. There was no river. Every day, the old man would gather pots together and disappear. When he returned, his pots would be filled with water. One day, the sons followed the old man to a tree that was so tall they could not see the top of it. The branches stretched for miles across the land. The old man chopped a hole in the tree, and from this hole, water came. When he left, the sons tried to chop for water, but no water would come. That night, the sons made a magic spell, and one of them changed into a scorpion and bit the old man while he slept. And in his pain, the father told them they must use his magic axe to get the water. The sons stole the axe and went to the tree and began to chop. When the water came from the tree, the sons were so happy they did not stop. Soon the giant tree began to fall. It crashed to the ground and buried itself deep into the earth. And when it filled with water, it became the Amazon. And the branches became rivers and lakes that flow into the Amazon. The leaves fell on the water like rain and became boats filled with Yagua Indians. Then the river filled with fish and water creatures and buffalo, freshwater porpoise.
After 3 years of research, a scientific expedition to catch freshwater porpoise has selected Iquitos, Peru as the most desirable location. The village sprawls along the Amazon River in one of the most remote regions of South America. Iquitos. Where the roads end, jungle begins. Freshwater porpoises do exist in other corners of the universe, but Iquitos has an airport, making it available to the outside world. Although studies have been made of the marine porpoise, none has been made as yet of the freshwater variety. Unfortunately, the only time the town band gets to practice is when a plane arrives. In charge of the expedition, Captain Joe LeBlanc has 28 years of experience working with all kinds of marine life. Bill Rollerson, second in command, is an expert deep-sea fisherman and ship's carpenter. Andrea Whitney will prepare paintings and sketches of the venture. Harry Whitney will act as coordinator between the Peruvian government and the expedition. Learning the chartered freight plane carrying all their special equipment developed engine trouble and had to return to Miami. They arranged to meet their contact man, Mr. Leo Baumer. Owner of the largest collecting compound in South America, Leo has the only filtered tanks in Iquitos large enough and deep enough to hold the porpoises once they are caught. Never having caught a buffalo, Joe asks Leo about his techniques.
How do you go about catching these buffaloes?
Well, I never went out and caught them. As a matter of fact, nobody ever did.
Several days later, with still no word regarding when their equipment will arrive, Joe and Leo make arrangements with the Peruvian Air Force to use one of their planes to help locate the porpoise. Instructions to the pilot are to find the nearest lakes, which in reality are large lagoons, having water passageways leading into them from the Amazon.
We just took one look at the river and we knew that it wasn't possible to fish in there because the current was running so strong and it was too deep. We got us a guide and we found out about these lakes, and they said there was some porpoises in there.
Besides the number of porpoise, size of the lake and depth of the water, which must all be taken into account, Along the Amazon, distance is measured by hours or days. Thus, nearness to Iquitos is very important.
4 fathoms here.
The lake finally chosen is 8 hours away by boat from Iquitos.
I hope they take it easy.
If they don't, we'll be out of business.
Hey, Leo, you must be kidding.
Upon the arrival of the equipment plane, it is discovered that the special nets are missing.
You're not
I
sure?
believe that's a net box, but I'm not sure. You see, we made 2 of these boxes.
How can you make sure? Can we pry it
We'll
open?
have to look in it.
But it just isn't possible.
No, I'd say we're well off if we have the net.
That just isn't possible. We don't have our net. Joe, how long did it take you and Billy and me to make a net?
Oh, we can't make porpoise net.
I seen a guy in the Virgin Islands build a turtle net in one morning. It was 60 foot long and 4.5 foot deep.
60 foot long, but this is 600 foot long and 15, 16 feet deep. It would take us weeks to build a net.
Fortunately, while Joe and Bill stripped down the speedboats and built special net boxes on the backs of them, Leo located the missing nets upriver. Bad luck was predicted for Bill by the natives when he found a porpoise jawbone by the river's edge and removed a tooth as a souvenir. They believe the buffalo is magic. While alive, he has the power to lure a lone woman into the water's depths, where he will keep her forever as his slave. Thus, the women are forbidden to bathe or wash clothes alone. After he dies, buffalo flesh can be ground into a love potion by the witch doctor to give the power of eternal love when mixed with food or drink. Though Bill is not superstitious, it was only after he decided to lose the tooth that they were able to catch their first porpoise. Finally, after 3 weeks of lost equipment, misinformation based on superstitions, and indescribable living conditions, the equipment boats are loaded. They have to leave a day ahead of the expedition, for it will take them, against the current, 24 hours to reach the jungle campsite. The trip upriver to the jungle campsite only took the expedition 8 hours due to the faster speed of the catch boats. But before Joe and Bill can start to catch buffalo, the boats must be lined with foam rubber and the net distributed equally between the two.
Get it all messed up. We don't want nothing tangled up, you know.
Okay.
Now the search begins. Anticipating instant separation, the boats are held together by hand. Marine porpoises can be seen arching out of the water. When the buffalo comes up for air, he barely exposes the top of his head. This, along with the dirty water and their gray-pink color, makes it difficult to spot them. At first, they are only seen in the deepest part of the lake, always just out of reach. It's almost as if they were playing games with the expedition.
I think they're afraid of the boats and the engines running. I don't believe they're used to hearing these big engines running up in these lakes. The fishermen use paddles, and these porpoises are quite different from the porpoises we have at home. They have a long needle nose, and they also have whiskers on the top of their nose and on the bottom of the chin.
Their first breakaway comes in the center of the lake. As soon as the circle is complete, Bill's boat rushes to the edge of the net. Now the timing must be exact. If the buffalo are not reached in time and freed from the net, they will drown. Not only have the porpoises somehow escaped, but Harry fell overboard, and in all the excitement, the nets got tangled in the motor and must be cut away. Each time they miss, each time there's a tear in the net, it means a delay of possibly hours.
Miguel, snag.
On their next try, they managed to capture a floating island, but still no porpoise. They're still waiting, just outside the net.
It was really difficult to find a place, even in this lake, that the water was shallow enough that we could catch these porpoises. The net has to be on the bottom or the porpoises will go under it. There were some people down here said these porpoises would not swim deep enough to go under our net. But we found out that they would go down to the bottom of the net, to the lead line, take their nose, put under the lead line, pick it up, and swim under it.
The Bufeo don't seem to tire of this game as easily as the men, and it's a little hard to tell who's trying to catch whom. The Bufeo keep escaping under the net, and so it is decided to force them into shallow water by driving the boats up onto the shore.
Here we go.
Easy does it.
There they are. How about now? There, go ahead, go to it. He's hit, go to it. Just hang on to the net. Coming this way. Female, another female. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Right on, cowboy. It's coming in pretty good now. It's coming this way. Come on, Gilbert.
I've seen all kinds of porpoise catching, but never like this.
I think I swallowed a piranha. I done give up. Give up and you make a set catch. Never give up the shit.
Now they must rush the porpoises back to Iquitos, but before they leave the campsite, white bed sheets are placed over them.
We have to cover their eyes to keep the sun from hurting their eyes and it'll blind them.
To protect their sensitive noses, extra padding is placed at their heads. The current being with them, the trip back to Iquitos will take 6 hours. Unlike dolphins, Bufeo are able to move their heads violently from side to side, which comes as a surprise to Bill.
Will you stop that?
A wrestling contest ensues when the Bufeo refuse to lie still.
We had quite a lot of trouble with them. I had to lay on this female almost all the way back to keep from hurting herself or getting out of the boat. And it was a couple of times during the trip back that she tried to bite us.
Once the porpoises are placed in the holding tanks at Leo's, and arrangements are made for their care, Joe and Bill depart once more for the lake and more porpoise catching.
The only thing was that we came down here expecting to catch very small animals, so we made a special net which has small mash. We could put the net around these animals, but they wouldn't hit the net like our porpoises at home. Our porpoises at home, if we use a large mash net, they will think they can go through the mashes, hit the net, and foul themselves in the net. And after we got the porpoises in shallow water, we had to go out and catch them with our hands, actually, and put them in the boats. And the bottom was real muddy, and it was really difficult to get these porpoises in the boat after we had the net around them.
I hope this is that other buck. Oh, yeah. You better watch out, he'll get you. That son of a guy, I gave him mouth-to-mouth respiration this time. Oh, yeah. Come on, sugar. Sugar, Bug. I hope this is that other buck. Yeah, really? Let's put another sheet. Go into town. Yeah, but we got to get some gas to us, eh? We're going to take this animal in. All right, calm down, baby. Calm down. You're feeling nervous. Then, woo-hoo! 5.5 fathoms back there. Looks like we have a mom and a baby. Slippery little devil.
After we got this large female porpoise in the boat, she almost bit me in the face.
Calm down, baby.
2 weeks and 11 porpoises later, the expedition breaks camp and heads back to Iquitos. Now all that remains is the Herculean task of getting the 11 Buffalo back to Florida, alive and healthy. No one knows if it can be done, because no one up until now has ever tried to do it. Several cablegrams have been sent to Florida requesting a charter plane to come get the expedition. However, Iquitos communications have not improved while the expedition was up the river. While waiting for an answer, and because the trip back will take an estimated 16 hours, it is important that the porpoises get used to the touch, sound, and feel of human beings. So Joe and Bill feed them 5 times a day, trying to coax them into eating from their fingers. The splashing sound as the fish hits the water makes the buffalo curious, and they come to investigate, only to draw back when faced by a fish with a hand connected to it. On the day of departure to the United States, in order to place the buffalo more easily onto the slings, half the water is drained out of the tank. According to their size, they weigh between 40 to 300 pounds. When verification on the arrival of the charter plane was finally received, Bill left for Florida to make sure everything is ready there. Due to the 21,000-foot Andes, it will be impossible to fly the porpoises back over the regular air routes. Flying over altitudes of more than 3,000 to 5,000 feet could cause the entire shipment of animals to die. The plane cabin is not pressurized, and too thin an atmosphere would not only be a tremendous shock to their nervous systems, but also intensive cold could result in pneumonia.
Cuidado con el coletazo. Súbanlo despacito a la camilla, no se vaya a caer. Despacio. Ya, álcenlo otro poco.
Leo, tell them boys them porpoise won't bite them.
No sé para qué quieren esto los americanos.
Ay, ay, ay.
Bueno, agárralo con cuidadito.
Cuidado con quiera, ¿verdad? Pega muy fuerte. ¿No me le acerco?
Bueno, poquito, mira. Mucho cuidado, ¿eh? Poquito, agárralo la cola.
Está muy... Mira, está muy grande. Si usted no tuyo, es peligroso este animal.
No te va a morder.
Loaded into Leo's truck, they are driven to the plane and placed in separate, customized shipping crates. Carefully lined with foam rubber padding, these crates were especially designed and constructed by Joe and Bill. The pilot has re-evaluated the route selected, and the estimated length of the journey home is now 18 hours. Their first refueling stop will be Barcelona, Venezuela. On takeoffs and landings, Andrea holds the baby to make sure he isn't accidentally banged around. Airborne at last. Nothing but unexplored jungle lies below them. Areas that are completely unknown to civilized man. In the event of engine failure, there is no place to land. There are no navigational aids, nor charts that tell the pilot what to expect. There will not even be any periodic weather condition broadcasts while over these regions. There is only jungle, and eventually, foothills. So little is known about the buffalo, how long they can exist out of water, the effect of even the low altitude on them, that special attention is paid to their every move and sound. They must be constantly checked, turned over, wet down, and calmed. The fishermen have told them that just before a buffalo dies, he thrashes about, twisting and turning in a frenzy of activity. This may be only another superstition thought up by the witch doctor, but for the time being, this is all they have to go on. And so they watch carefully for any such phenomena. By the time they land in Barcelona, Venezuela, 6 hours later, the trip is beginning to tell on both the porpoises and the people. No one thought to pack lunches for the flight back, thinking to eat at their refueling stops along the way. But they only have Peruvian money, which no one in Venezuela is willing to accept. It is not until late afternoon that the journey is resumed. Next stop, San Juan, Puerto Rico. This part of the flight is over the ocean. Everyone has to wear cumbersome life jackets, and the eyes of the buffalo are covered to help calm them. The bulky life jackets make it awkward to care for the porpoises and add to the feeling of confusion and anxiety. As the journey lengthens, it takes on a dreamlike quality, turning the buffalo, wetting them down, listening to the roar of the engines, feeling the plane vibrating beneath you, surrounding you. Time out for a quick cigarette, a secret thought of home and family. Suddenly aware of sharp pain stabbing between the shoulder blades from bending over the buffalo too many times. Wondering if this flight is ever going to end. Night now, and a feeling of being trapped between two worlds, and a part of neither. 15.5 hours have somehow passed, and no one, including the buffalo, has had anything to eat nor any sleep. Time seems frozen and somehow hostile. The darkness of the night is finally relieved by the landing lights of San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the plane lands again for a brief refueling stop. The animals are cleared through customs. Now, dawn over the ocean, and the last lap of the journey to St. Augustine, Florida, begins. No time to surrender to the numbness of fatigue. The porpoises must still be cared for. Signs of death must still be watched for and guarded against. Time zones have been changed. Still no food, no sleep, all sense of being lost. Suddenly below is St. Augustine and home. The original 16-hour estimate somehow has turned out to be a 24-hour flight of nightmare. Expecting the expedition's plane earlier, Bill and the crew, along with Cliff Townsend, the chief biologist from Marineland of Florida, have been standing by at the St. Augustine airport. Upon their arrival at Marineland, and before the buffalo can take up residence in their new home, each one is given an injection of vitamins, penicillin, and other antibiotics. As they are placed in the small receiving pool, and because of their new surroundings, the porpoises immediately head for the bottom instead of going through the gate into the larger adjoining tank. It's a small pool, and as the number of buffalo increase in it, when they come up for air, they accidentally knock the divers over. The baby has trouble when he's first placed in the water. He's lost his equilibrium and can't swim to the bottom of the tank with the others.
Don't let him fall out.
These tanks were specifically designed to hold the freshwater porpoises.
Lower him easy now. Keep him from hitting the wall if you can.
Determination and a little time finally solved the baby's problem, and he joins the others in the investigation of his new home. As man begins the exploration of outer space, it becomes more and more apparent how little we know of Earth. Few people have ever heard of a buffalo before, and no one has ever collected together a colony for a controlled study of them. Saltwater porpoises have yielded valuable information about sonar. Will the information now to be gathered from the buffalo justify the hardships, time, effort, and money expended? No one knows. But just perhaps, these animals hold the secrets of how we can deal with strange and unexpected problems, even as far away as the stars.